Hello and welcome to IGPP Expert Talks. I am Heena Goswami, Editorial Consultant with IGPP, Institute for Governance, Policies and Politics, New Delhi. We are here on the sidelines of an international conference being organized by IGPP in collaboration with CSSS, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, Justice Liburg University, Gießen, and German Research Foundation, Germany. The conference Environmental Policy Discourses since the 1960s, Politics, Problems and Narratives of Environmental Policies in Europe and Asia is an attempt to bridge narratives and inquire into the discourses of environmental policies that have governed Europe and Asia since the 1960s. Academicians, researchers, experts, policymakers are gathered in New Delhi, and today we have with us one of the key participants of the conference, Professor Lailufar Yasmin. Welcome, Professor. Uh, Professor Lailufar Yasmin is currently engaged as the professor at the Department of International Relations, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. She has written extensively on secularism in Bangladesh and on South Asian issues. Professor Yasmin has also been involved with institutions of great international repute. Her latest research involves politics, ethnic issues, maritime security, and gender and conflict related themes. Welcome, Professor Yasmin. Uh, so let's begin with the conference where you'll be talking about the discourse of commons in Bangladesh. Tell us about the concept of commons and how do you think that can help us fight climate change, and what are the main environmental concerns of Bangladesh at this point?
Thank you for having me, and I thank IGCP for inviting me as one of the participants here. It has been a very interesting session from the morning where we have been talking about what are the environmental issues that our previous generation have failed us, in fact, and how it is a more younger generation who are working so that we can all live together in foreseeable future. So in the case of Bangladesh, we have a number of issues that are often human caused, and they have an implication for us in the long run. Interestingly, when I point out that they are caused by humans, they're not caused directly by Bangladeshis or even South Asians, but they are the problems caused countries who live far away from us, but the repercussions of which not only Bangladesh but other South Asian countries are experiencing. So in Bangladesh, as it is situated at the mouth of the Bay of Bengal is one of the most cyclone-prone sea in the world. So therefore, we have cyclonic activities at one hand. On the other hand, due to climate change, we have a rising salinity, sea level rise, and intrusion of the saline water inside our land area. So we have in the northern, we have our southern area. We have saline intrusion for which our arable lands those are being affected. On the other hand, because of a different kind of climate related challenges, our northern areas we are seeing desertification. So we have multiple level of challenges. At one hand, we cannot grow properly, different kind of crops such as rice. Rice needs 3 times as much water as is needed to grow maize, for example. So in northern area, the farmers now are shifting from growing rice to growing maize. So you can see how that will in future will change the diet of Bangladeshi people. So one kind of issue over there. And on the southern area, we can see due to saline intrusion, farmers are increasingly facing these challenges of growing crops. So Bangladeshi scientists, along with scientists working from different parts of the world, have been able to invent some saline resistant crops. So we are fighting against the kind of challenges that we are experiencing.
So you mentioned how vulnerable Bangladesh is to climate change, but do you think that climate change and environmental policies receive the kind of attention that they should in domestic politics. Because sometimes, we miss the larger picture from the shorter term goals, especially politicians.
This is, I think, not only in Bangladesh, but it is worldwide true because, as you say, politicians see, winning in the election is their, end in their end objective. So what happens is that they don't want to impose or talk about certain kind of tax or certain kind of reforms that can go against the interests of the business community. So the politicians, at the end of the day, they fulfill often their narrow self-interest. So often in domestic politics, we have seen that happening in America, we've seen that happening in Canada, Australia, and Bangladesh is no exception. One thing I would say in the case of Bangladesh is a bit different, that in our top leadership, there is a recognition, growing recognition, because we are compelled to deal with this on an everyday basis. For example, when in 2020, 2021, we experienced flood, so our Honorable Prime Minister, she wrote an article in The Guardian that while, the world was fighting against COVID, here in Bangladesh, we were not only fighting against COVID, but also fighting against flood. So you see how even in the time of a pandemic, a country can face catastrophic disaster, which is of different nature, and for which we need help, we need assistance. And these floods are not caused only by monsoon, but also it's as a result of cumulative effect, cumulative changes that have taken place in the nature. Therefore, international community must come forward. So domestic politicians, they have their duties. Often they have failed, but often we have also seen countries like Bangladesh or other South Asian countries, we have growing recognition that we have to bring our cases to international community.
True. To move on to your academic research, you have focused upon issues of gender and politics. To turn to them, and we are seeing women's protest in Iran and the increasing solidarity that they have received from world over. What is it about women's clothing that scares, liberal states such as France and authoritarian regimes like Iran? I mean, what are they scared of?
This is a very interesting question, because when you compare France and Iran together, bring them in the same frame, that gives us actually to have a fresh perspective on that. Because, how a woman would dress, it should be entirely her choice. Yes, often we can see that local culture, local practices, they have some influence. But in the age of globalization, when a country want to impose its own ideas on half the population, because they're not talking about men's clothing, right? They're only talking about women's clothing. So there is something wrong in the entire thinking that we have to regulate women's body, how women look, how women present themselves in the public sphere. Therefore, I find that when we are talking about what is happening in Iran, it is equally important for us to look at countries like France, that how they are also imposing certain ban in the name of being secular. But look at France's national holidays. They have national holiday during celebration of 25th December. I forgot the name. Christmas. Okay. So during Christmas, France has a national holiday. Truly secular country would not, pit one religion over all the others. I can cite one simple example, that New York, the city of New York, they gradually, started to introduce that there would be school holidays for Muslim children if they want to celebrate Eid. So you need to, if you recognize the right of people belonging to one religious group, you must have to do that uniformly. So this is something we have not seen. So when some celebrities on Twitter or in other social media, they are talking about rights of Iranian people, they are not talking about rights of women who are living in France or in other European countries, where women are not allowed to express how they want to wear their clothes. So I think how women, whether a woman want to cover herself or not cover herself, and there is a sort of that should be on that particular community, women to choose. So therefore, this is we need more discussions on this. That what we understand when we talk about liberal values. My liberal values can be very conservative value to you, and your conservative value can be, illiberal to me. So we need to really have a deeper, look and wide conversation on this.
So, I also feel, or, there's this perception of Islamophobia in Western countries. And so, do you think women are, burdened with both Islamophobia, that that is an ideology current in Western countries, and also the wrath of dictatorial regimes in their own countries? Like, isn't it the double burden that they face?
Yes, actually, as we know that a number of scholars, they have written how women are seen as the carrier and the bearer of culture of a nation. So we call our countries as mother, right? Motherland. Only a few countries in the world they call it fatherland, like Germany. So we can see that how women are seen as an icon to represent a country, and we fail to recognize that women have their own aspirations, and with a number of changes in the society, women are not immune to those changes, and they have adapted with the changes. Some of them, for example, they find covering themselves is a requirement. You know why? Because of economic compulsion. So in the rural areas where women cannot, they do not have enough money, the family cannot provide them with money for, showing off with good dresses, new dresses every day. So they would rather prefer to wear, burqa or cover themselves. And then we often forget the role of, the end of a Cold War. After the end of the Cold War, you would see there was a change worldwide, that there is a lack of, ideology. And then Islam emerged as a sort of something to express identity in many parts of the world, especially Muslim dominated countries. So we have seen that it is not only among we often target the rural women, about their dresses, choice of dresses, but it's also upper middle class, how they are wearing, different types of hijab, which is, there's no written, instruction about how to wear hijab. So they are wearing hijab with a lot of makeup, and the whole face is white, the lips are red, and and they are all covered. So the question of purda originally is not to attract attention towards someone, but with that, all those makeup, all the jewelry, and the hijab has a specific type of different jewelry. And now you would see that big fashion houses like Gucci and others, they are also producing hijab, because there's a good market for that in the
Sure.
Middle East, and to for other rich women. So you can see that how this is being practiced by certain classes. The middle class, in fact, middle class women, they are in dilemma that whether they should go for hijab or whether they should continue with their current lifestyle. So Islamophobia has created this reassertion of identity. With the end of, with the death of Soviet Union, we have seen that Islam kind of fulfilled this void in Muslim majority countries. So these have a like international and local, how they are connected. This is one argument we often forget, and we need to also have a talk about it and how this is politically used. For example, Myanmar regime in their persecution against Rohingyas, they use Islamophobic, statements, contents. So this has a greater impact in different societies.
True. Uh, in the particular context of Bangladeshi women, how do you think they have responded to such burden, and what are the unique challenges that they face?
Islamophobia.
Yeah.
Okay, in the case of Bangladesh, in fact, I would say that it is both Islamophobia, both assertion of identity. All of these issues worked in such a complex manner that when I started teaching back in 1999 May, from then on, the kind of students they used to sit in front of me, their character has really changed. Character meaning their appearance and how they deal with each other. So there'll be two things, two separate sort of issues with the boy, students, and male students and female students. Male students, we used to get names Yasir Arafat at one point of time. Then we started getting names Saddam Hussein, and Hussein is spelled differently given their background and given that, but Saddam was a very common name. So you can see that how it's the families which are ideologizing, their children with their name, with their attire. With the female students, I would say very few female students who be wearing burqa or hijab or covering themselves, but like decent salwar kameez, unna, these they will be wearing. Sari has turned into a more of a dress that you wear during festivals, right? With a lot of jewelry and how you present yourself. That's a different issue. But even now, when women are wearing sari, they cover themselves. They don't often do not wear like earrings, but they wear heavy sort of neck pieces. So we can see that how this is changing. So my students, interestingly, female students nowadays, I can see two strict division, and very few times I've seen a gray zone like black and white. Either you are wearing burqa and burqa with all covered. Before, even like 3-4 years back, I would say there were a lot of colors, but gradually they are turning towards wearing black color, which comes from Wahhabi tradition. And the other group is, interestingly, they're wearing jeans and t-shirt, or jeans or loose fatwa, the one that we call loose top. So I can see that how they are increasingly going towards a non-negotiable situation. And my message to them is that it does not matter what you wear, it does not matter what you can afford, it does not matter what you think is right. It is always an opinion. What we think, what is needed is to increasingly communicate with each other, that your dress can be whatever. That does not mean that someone should be construed because of her dress belonging to a certain ideology. So this is something in my limited power as I can. I have a conversation with them in the class so that they have this fellow feeling that everyone, we belong to one community and we are here to, we cannot survive without the other. And this COVID pandemic has shown us we have to strive to survive with each other.
True. When we talk of gender and South Asia, we cannot but forget the fact that it is the subcontinent is famous for how oppressive, how oppressed the women are, or how oppressive we have the cultures have made it for them. But it has also given some of the prominent world leaders. You talked about your honorable Prime Minister's article. We have had our own share of female leaders, and most theorists, most political scientists say it is because of the family legacy they carry. But do you think that, especially in the context of Bangladesh, is it reason enough, or do you think that leaders have their own charisma and characteristics and policy that make them the female leaders that they are?
Okay. There's some kernel of truth in all of the issues that you have mentioned, that yes, families are important in South Asian context because a family sort of creates who you are as a person. They shows they show you what are the books to read, how to develop yourself, how to make yourself more intelligent, and what are the paths that you may follow. Often having an influential father or mother help a child to determine their course. So yes, in the case of South Asia, families do matter, but at the same time, as you say, the policies, the kind of promises, the kind of charisma they create for themselves. So there are a lot of influential families. We have not seen all of their daughters coming up. So we have seen in the case of Bangladesh that there are different kind of challenges. In fact, so there, in terms of Bangladeshi women's involvement in economic activities, it has 36%, about 36% engagement in economic area. But unfortunately, that does not mean that economic empowerment can automatically lead to their political decision making capacity. So we have seen in so many areas that you talked about culture. Who creates culture? This is a question that increasingly I feel that we need to have open discussion about, because it is the women who work as the gatekeeper of patriarchy, who internalize patriarchy, who teach their daughters, do this, do not do that. And unfortunately, as I with my 23 years of teaching, as I deal with more students, I can see that how they are kind of influenced in a manner that they know that at a certain age they have to get married, they have to take care of a family, they have to take care of a man, because we are all as women, we are entrusted with man child, right? So I can see that how this is a sort of a kind of ideology is passed on. The baton is passed on from the mother to the daughter. So we need to really understand that who is creating culture and who is creating this whole idea of us versus them that we increasingly see in international politics, in national politics. So because your mother is the first teacher, right? So we need to educate women so that this patriarchy is not internalized. In Bangladesh, a number of laws those have been rectified. For example, dowry related laws. So initially it was assumed that the husband is beating up the wife and killing the wife, but gradually it was unfolded that it was the mother-in-law, sister-in-law along with the husband. So you see, some women are also involved in oppressing another woman just because she is the daughter-in-law of the house, the wife of her son. On the other hand, in the case of treating her own daughter, she would be a different mother, but while treating the daughter-in-law, she's a different kind of mother. So you see, we need to really question this very idea that women are peaceful or mothers are peaceful, because it is the kind of teaching that is being passed on. So this is something we need to really understand, that so our dowry laws from 1980s and 1990s, they are sort of reformed to include that it's not only the husband, but it's the entire family that should be investigated. So the father-in-law, the mother-in-law, younger sisters of the husband, all of them equally participate in oppressing another woman, and that woman is someone's daughter as well. And this is kind of a chain reaction that happens in the society, and this is something is recognized in Bangladesh, and it needs to be more recognized in identifying who creates the culture.
True. So when we talk about women as gatekeepers of patriarchy, one feels that education and mobility can make a lot of difference. And Bangladesh has risen in its economic power. Has it led? Has that led to the betterment of women's condition? Has that improved their access to education? Has it made them more mobile?
Yes, actually, in the case of Bangladesh, as you know, Bangladesh is now, I'm very proud to say, that the second largest economy of South Asia. It has the highest per capita GDP. I know in paper all of these may sound very rosy, but at the same time, the ground reality is not quite, reflective of these facts, because we have rural-urban divide. So you can see that women's mobility, women's assertion, women's assertion of their identity, this is quite different in urban context and in rural context. So in urban areas, you would see the way women negotiate their everyday crises, that is quite different than the rural areas. So we see in rural areas, women have less voice than urban women, because urban women are often seen as this bearer of and maker of the culture. So inside Dhaka, like I represent Dhaka, so I cannot say that I represent women of Bangladesh, because I come from a quite privileged background. I come as a Dhaka University professor. I come from a privileged background, but whenever I travel outside of Dhaka by bus, I can see that how women do not really talk much. Women really in public, do not really talk much, or do not really have much decision making power. So this is something always different, and I'm afraid that in many South Asian urban cities, including Bangladesh, we often fail to understand this rural-urban dilemma. So, in the case of women's issues, the way we say that southern women are northern women, white women's burden. So it's more like, in the case of South Asian countries, urban women are like, gatekeepers for, how women should look like, dress like, talk like, present themselves for the rural women. But we often fail to take into account that there is because Dhaka hosts 20 million people, about 20 million people, and of them, the elite or women who sort of in the discourse making is also very, very, it's not very large in terms of number, but when they become spokesperson of all the women in Bangladesh, that there is something inherently wrong in that. They have their perspective, they come from privileged background, and they do not go through everyday struggle that rural women go. So we cannot really speak on behalf of them that this is the Bangladeshi discourse. In fact, Bangladeshi discourse is quite fragmented. We are a homogeneous country, but in terms of creating women's discourse, it's quite fragmented. Go to Rajshahi, that is northern part, go to southern part. Women have different kind of struggles, and we need to find a way to promote this idea that is that can be modeled after the UN declaration, the Beijing declaration coming from the UN Beijing conference in 1995, that unity in diversity, that Bangladeshi women do not form a homogeneous group. They are quite fragmented. We are united in terms of being Bangladeshis, but we have different kind of issues and problems and needs that are coming from different regions, and that increasingly the urban women who consider themselves as representatives of all Bangladeshi women, they should start considering that.
True. To come to the theme of religion, we talked about how Islam has, emerged as an ideology post the fall of Soviet. Do you think there has been a revival of religious fundamentalism in South Asia, and why? To what do you attribute this rise?
Unfortunately, yes, we often try not to talk about it, but by not talking about it, we are actually ignoring the problem that is brewing. Because there has not been any major case of terrorism in Bangladesh or in India or, other regions in recent times, that does not mean that they are not working there. So I would say that we are often neglecting how Talibanization of Afghanistan has happened and what are the repercussions of that. There were a number of reports which were published that how Afghanistan is now turning into the capital of capital for terrorists. Not only that, how digital extremists from Central Asia, they are working with the Taliban regime, and they are recruiting men from different South Asian countries. So this is one side, but what we are not also looking at is feminization of joblessness, what has happened in Bangladesh. So one of the researchers in around August, September published, it was a rapid, review of joblessness condition in Bangladesh after during COVID. That identified a number of Bangladeshi research organizations worked in that project, and they identified that women are the first victims of job cut. So women, just think about even me, like we are equipped, we know how to use technology, and when we are providing a significant portion of money in the household total resources, we may not have our voices, but we are contributing, right? That itself gives us a feeling of some accomplishment, give us some kind of agency. When the first job cut, it hits us, what do we do? And then it is easy through internet chat box, using different kind of apps to recruit these women, and very few works. In fact, I have not seen many works done on this recruitment of women, how this is happening. We know some work has been done in the case of Southeast Asia. Even during COVID, it was in August 2020, there were 3 suicide bombing. I think it was in one of the South Asian nations. because I do not have the correct name, I'm not mentioning any name. So one of the Southeast Asian nations, one of the suicide bombers was a woman. So we think that women have this, women are motherly, women have the idea about their, children, and therefore they don't want to be suicide bombers. But in reality, we can see women have the sense of self-preservation as much as men. We are human beings at the end of the day. So we are thinking about the political future of a country. And whenever we find that, okay, by blowing myself up, I can make a difference, women do not hesitate to take that chances. So even during the COVID period, we have seen suicide bombers and women are volunteering. I mean, we do not know the entire case, but a woman was there. So we can see that how this study in South Asia on different South Asian countries, that what has happened to these jobless women who are well equipped to use technology. I'm afraid that we might be really wasting our time by ignoring this problem.
You are also a professor in one of the leading universities of Bangladesh. And do you think that the youth today is aware of all the issues, fundamentalism, the gender divide, the rural urban divide? What kind of shift in attitude towards politics or these issues have you seen since 1999?
Yes, I would say that in University of Dhaka we have seen that students are quite aware of the kind of changes that are taking place. But at the same time, I think youth, especially in Bangladesh, they have more job oriented thinking. I would say this is an effect of neoliberal economy where you just live, you just live for yourself, you just live for your own career, you just develop yourself. So this has created more individualistic notion than the kind of involvement of students we used to see before, because Bangladesh is the only one of the I believe only country in the world where this University of Dhaka, which is the leading university in Bangladesh, it has created students movement, it has created a national movement, it has led the national independence movement. So there we have a glorious history of students politics, students being aware of the issues, students protest and reminding us, the rest of the country, that what are the issues at hand that politicians and the society should pay attention to. But increasingly we can see that students are not interested in doing that. Rather, they are interested in their in sort of developing their own career. So I would say that yes, they are aware of it, but they are not willing to take action as they used to do before. Of course, I cannot blame them alone, because it is the whole societal transformation that has taken place in Bangladesh for various reasons. That is one of the reasons for which it has happened.
Do you think part of the blame also lies on the kind of misinformation they are being receiving through, internet, distorted versions of history that they now see? Do you think that could also be, partly to blame?
In fact, instead of that, I would rather say that the addiction to social media. So, I mean, it's very interesting for me to see that how they are not, interested to come to class unless you tell them that your, class participation would be counted as marks. So, I can see that how they are more interested to spend money on buying mobile data than buying a book. The whole culture is shifting, at least in the case of Bangladesh, because that famous saying, what Bengal thinks today, India thinks tomorrow. In that case, I mean, from that perspective, I can tell you that how Bangladesh is developing itself, reorienting itself. That is a lesson for the rest of South Asia, rest of the world, because we can see how we are increasingly talking about a Bangladesh model that should be followed by India and other South Asian countries. Even after coming here today, I was asked about this question, that what is it that the Bangladeshis did that they have gone so far ahead HDI and in other areas. But I can see that this is rather a community-based sort of work than the way students used to work before. As I say, that I do not blame them alone, because it is a different time, it is a different way that they were brought up. And of course, I would rather say it's our generation who did not teach our children, because I often tell my friends that how we are producing farm chicken, in the sense that, we are overprotective. Our generation became overprotective because our parents really prepared us to fight challenges, tackle challenges on our own, and we have succeeded. But I do not know why our generation think that, children will have to be catered and have to be given whatever they want immediately. And this has, I think, has a huge impact on their psychology.
Do you have some suggestions that how we can better, guide the youth?
Yeah, my first and foremost guidance would be, limit the use of phone, because I understand it's the age of smartphone, and it has a lot of advantages. For example, we are responding to emails, responding to a lot of work related issues immediately, but at the same time there should be some guidelines. For example, I believe smart people has made people even more unsmart than before. They immediately, you cannot call someone, you need to really text someone and ask about their availability. After 5, for example, that is your private time, personal time. You are not supposed to respond to official mails. So these are some of the examples we should do. We should start following and teach the youth that this is how that we have something called life, right? That is not stuck in mobile phone. So this is something, because I think in France and in a couple of other European countries, they already have a labor law that employer cannot provide any work related instructions after office time. Of course, that is also breached, because when someone wants an easy promotion, they would rather cater to boss's demands. But somehow or the other, we need to create this another social contract, that this is that we need to sort of take a pause. COVID gave us an opportunity, but I think COVID made us even more addicted to technology and the tools. But we need to really talk about creating a new social contract, so that a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old, they don't own their own mobile phones. This is something the parents actively should do.
Thank you so much, Professor Yasmin. I'm so happy we had this very enlightening discussion. I hope you have a great stay in Delhi, and I look forward to your session at the conference tomorrow.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for giving me a scope to voice my ideas. Thank you
so much.